Hello, everyone. This is A K Enamul Haque from Bangladesh, and I'm with my friend Philip Shah from Canada. This has been a tremendous week for everyone. I think globally, everyone has been watching lots of events. First, it was the G7 summit was happening in Canada. And then Mr. Trump, the president of the United States, came back abruptly from G7. And then there was also Israel-Iran war happening. And today, as we're recording it, the Iran has been attacked by the United States. At least several of its nuclear centers has been attacked. We don't know yet what is the consequence of such attack in terms of the damage. Neither do we know much about the impact on the ground. But what we now heard from different sources is that there has been a strike, almost from a submarine in probably in the Arabian Sea, 640 kilometers distance. These Tomahawk missiles and the bombers was thrown at Iran, and the B-2 bombers were used to drop the bombs. Significantly large amount of bombs at the centers or the reactors where the nuclear research was going on. So given this has been probably one of the most talked about scenario in the world. But our objective is to educate from our point of view how the whole world is viewing it. I can tell you, people in this part of the world, particularly around India, Pakistan, China, the general people are not happy with it. They see it as founding of a superpower on a country which has been trying to stand up against the superpower for many years. On the other hand, the views within the Middle East is probably mixed. I would say that I was watching some of the news reports from even Kuwait, and I have seen people not very unhappy, particularly some of the researchers that were talking about it, that it would contain Iran's ability to create a nuclear bomb, in a sense. That's what they were thinking of. I'm not sure whether this is the general view of the public in the Middle East, but in the Gaza, for example, people were all celebrating technically the bombardment of Iran on the Israelis, and you can see why they were doing it. So given these feeling, we are not sure what is the next round of actions will take place. But I think we can see from our own end, how do we view the thing and how can we react? So given this, let me invite Philip Shah from Canada and get together his opinion on these particular issue. Phil.
Thank you. Thank you, Enamel. I do appreciate it. Philip Shaw here for East West again this month from Dresden, Ontario. And I must say that, living about 17 kilometers from the American border, I get a particularly Western view of all this. And, it's interesting. Somebody asked me one time, do Dr. Hawke and you always disagree about everything? I said, well, maybe when we were younger we did, but we know each other so well now we usually agree with each other. But with regard to Iran, I think you have to think about it from a Western perspective, my perspective, for instance. Both the United States and Canada have had a deep history with Iran that hasn't been pleasant. The Americans have had a long history with Iran, good and bad, before the revolution and after. And in recent memory, it's all been about the hostages that were taken in 1979, and that has stayed in the psyche of the American culture seemingly forever. Now, keep in mind at the same time, some of you are probably aware that the Canadians and the Canadian ambassador smuggled out some of those American hostages back in about 1979 or 1980. And after that, we closed our embassy. And so Iran has been a kind of a pariah for both the United States and Canada for a very, very, very long time. So you have this, I don't know whether you call it an attitude or whatever you have here in the United States and Canada that is overly cautious about Iran on almost anything. And the idea of them having a nuclear device is just a no-go, no-brainer type of thing that they shouldn't be allowed to have that. Now, I know it's very hypocritical from a Western perspective to impose your values on other countries and other people, but it's very easy for me to understand how large segments of American society think that. And over the past several years, since President Obama negotiated the nuclear agreement with Iran that was all settled in 2015, I was very pleased with that because I've always taken the position that, we should, other countries should have resources like nuclear power for peaceful purposes. And that all seemed to work for me. But of course, there's a large segment within society on this side of the world that doesn't believe that. And frankly, when I heard that there was speculation that the Americans would strike the nuclear installations in Iran, I was hoping that would not be the case. Was hoping that would not be the case, and of course, it's very fresh. But we know now that it's happened, and there's a large segment in this part of the world that thinks that's a very just thing to do because having Iran with a bomb would be a very tough thing, even though Pakistan has nukes, North Korea has nukes, Israel has nukes. We could go all down the line, but that seems to be okay. So there's a lot of hypocrisy with that, but I know that that is the conventional wisdom that we've had on this side of the world for a very long time regarding Iran. Now, Enamel and I go way back, and we've talked about this before on East West that when we were students, I remember we ran into a student that his name was Musa. He had fought in the Iraq and Iran war, and he was a student at Guelph, and he was an Iraqi student. And I remember just thinking at the time, my gosh, that's really something to have a student here that actually did something like that. The point being is Iran's a long ways away from here. It's not as far from South Asia where Enamel's from. And, I'm uncomfortable with the whole thing. Generally, I see the world as less stable now because of this. Of course, the Iranians and the Israelis are still shooting missiles at each other. And, I just see it as being something that adds instability to the world right now that we don't need. Now, however, there are others in this part of the world that would say just the opposite, that in fact, that Iran any type of nuclear resources, especially for a bomb, that they make the world a better place. However, I know that, because of the commentary we do from the different parts of the world, the different parts of the world see it so differently than we see it here. And so now we find ourselves where we are, and just like Dr. Hawk says, probably in Pakistan and India and China, they see it completely differently, probably in Russia as well, probably in Africa as well. And of course, in the Middle East, there's different dynamics going on there with regard to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and others, which would feel differently about a nuclear armed Iran. So it's pretty fresh news here, and I'll throw it over to you, Enamel, and you can pick it up from there with regard to how we feel about this situation.
Yes, yes. I think you have summarized it well. Views on our part, as I said, there are one group of people who are very emotional, very passionate on Iran. They see it as a kind of a repression on a weak person, on a weak society, because Iran is a third world, technically not a developed country, and they have been, it's not that they are poor, but their country has been also run by people from the West. Let us don't forget that Reza Shah Pahlavi was one of the US supported government. And so the history on both sides are very bitter. Iranians don't see the West as much friendly as true. At the same time, there are also people within Iran, and I'm pretty sure if you have noticed that one of the major failure that I see in this conflict is that Israel in particular had enough intelligence report on these people, and they killed so many generals and the nuclear scientists. So that tells you that within the Iranian society there is a divide, and the divide is possibly linked to the last regimes that ran Iran for many, many years. So that is something to be carefully analyzed in terms of doing it. On the other hand, people from our part of the world see it as a repression, as an aggression by the superpowers, which is not allowing someone to stand up. That's how it has been portrayed. While saying this, I think the future course of action will be an issue that if Iran is not careful, the way I look into it, let me summarize the way I have seen it. When Israel attacked the nuclear power stations or nuclear sites about 10 days ago, uh, it was not something they have done alone. So let us be very careful. The German chancellor mentioned it very carefully. He said Israel is doing what West should have done. The British, the French, they were all happy. But as you said, hypocritically, they decided to take different course of action. First, they allowed Israel to attack. Then it was President Trump decided to support it and party to it. He has been saying that this is a surgical attack, which means they are not going to continue with it. And on the same time, fully known, remember G7 is from where Trump came back. The Europe knew quite well that the Americans are going to attack, but they decided to start a discussion. So Iran, being a smaller country in this context of the West, had no choice but to be beaten up by this. In other words, this is what has happened because they were looking at it. But I think at the same time, the future course of action should be carefully crafted. If they spread it out to, let's say, the American military installations in the Middle East, it will be more complicated scenario. And I hope that does not happen. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure Iranian as a nation are very proud. Every nation is proud of their citizens, of their history, of their culture. So they will do their way of doing it. So I'm pretty sure there will be some selective retaliation, but hopefully it will not go all the way to war. But I don't think it is the end of the story. My feeling is that this whole game has been played over and over for quite a long time. The Trump in his first term withdrew himself from the nuclear deal that they had crafted before with the Germany, with the Russian, with the Europeans. And then it is again this time he has his own game plan. And as you said that they are, given the hypocrisy, given the history of Iran versus United States and Canada, this particular game will be a long shot game, not going to be very short. And I think every regime has to be very careful dealing with it because the world is in a transitional phase. So I'm pretty sure not other countries. There is always a kind of a rumor that it will be going to be third world war. But my feeling is there's nothing like this will happen. Countries will remain very quiet and let the people who are involved, the countries who are involved, suffer. The rest of us will be sympathetic, will have empathy for the killing of the people, but probably we will just watch and see the whole game. And with that, let me come up and ask Phil, what is your concluding observation on this?
Well, I think it's all unfortunate. I think it's all unfortunate, and I understand, through the years, and we've talked, you've helped me come around on a lot of these different things, and this is just another one. Because unfortunately, what I talked about with regard to the attitudes or the prejudice about Iran from this part of the world is very real, and the current leadership in the United States, definitely on that side, definitely on that side. I would like to see the Iranian people thrive, but like I said when we started this out, when we started this discussion out, this is very fresh now. We just had these strikes last night. We really hardly know anything about them. We don't know if there's going to be any retaliation. We don't know if there's going to be regime change at all in Iran, or whether it's going to come internally from Iran, or whether it's nothing's going to happen at all. Uh, so when I say let's hope cooler heads prevail, yes, let's hope cooler heads prevail, because the world has enough problems with another hot war going on between the United States, Iran, and Israel. So let's hope for better things. Thank you, Enamel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's hope the cooler heads prevail, as Phil said. And thank you all. Thank you very much for listening and for watching us.